What if your biggest monthly expense paid you back? According to the National Association of Realtors, the median net worth of homeowners in 2025 is $430,000, compared to just $10,000 for renters. That 43 times wealth gap is not an accident. It is not about income, intelligence, or even luck. It is mostly about one structural decision: whether your housing dollar is working for you or silently walking out the door every month and into someone else's pocket. And house hacking is the strategy that lets you change that equation early, using tools most people in their 20s have no idea even exist. Before we get into the mechanics, we need to talk about why so many people stay stuck on the renter side of that gap even when they genuinely want to own. Behavioral economists have a name for this: status quo bias. It is the well-documented human tendency to stay in whatever situation we are already in, even when moving would clearly benefit us. Researchers have shown that the mere act of having to make an active choice creates friction, and most people resolve that friction by doing nothing. For renters, the status quo is sending a check every month and telling themselves that buying is too complicated, too expensive, or not the right time. And the longer you stay, the more natural renting feels, even as rent climbs and your savings struggle to keep pace. Here is the data that should shake that comfort zone. According to the 2024 American Community Survey, more than 50% of all renter households in the United States are considered housing cost-burdened, meaning they spend 30% or more of their income on rent alone. The National Association of Realtors found that the Federal Reserve shows total U.S. home equity was over $35 trillion in 2024. Meanwhile, the New York Federal Reserve reported that 71.5% of renters say they would prefer to own a home, yet an increasing share believe they may never get there. That gap between wanting and doing is exactly where house hacking lives. So what actually is house hacking? The idea is straightforward. You buy a property, typically a duplex, triplex, or small multi-unit building. You live in one unit, and you rent out the others. The rental income from your tenants offsets your mortgage payment, your taxes, your insurance. In the best-case scenarios, particularly in high-rent markets or with the right property structure, that rental income can cover the entire payment. In the more realistic scenarios that experts are describing in 2025 and 2026, it cuts your housing cost by half or more. Either way, you are no longer paying full price to live somewhere. You are sharing that cost with people who are paying you to live next door. Think about what that actually means for a 25-year-old. Suppose you live in a mid-sized American city, Columbus, Charlotte, Indianapolis, San Antonio, and you buy a duplex for $425,000 using an FHA loan. Your down payment at 3.5% is just under $15,000. The other unit rents for $1,500 per month, which gets counted at 75% for mortgage qualification purposes. So about $1,125 of that goes toward helping you qualify. After your mortgage, taxes, and insurance, your net monthly housing cost might drop from $2,000 down to $500 or $600. Compare that to what renting a comparable unit in the same city would cost you outright. You are building equity, your tenant is helping cover the debt, and your monthly cash outflow on housing may be lower than it was when you were renting. The FHA loan angle is where this gets genuinely powerful for younger buyers, and it is a provision that most people in their 20s have never heard about. The Federal Housing Administration allows you to purchase up to a 4-unit property with as little as 3.5% down, as long as you occupy one of the units as your primary residence for at least 12 months. That same property purchased purely as an investment without living there would require a minimum of 20% down under conventional financing. You are essentially being allowed to buy into income-producing real estate at homeowner loan terms just by choosing to live in what you own. That is a tool the government built, and most people simply never use it. The psychological shift that house hacking forces is worth spending a moment on, because this is where most people either commit to the strategy or walk away. Living next to your tenant is not for everyone, and it is worth being honest about that. A Zillow survey found that more than half of millennial homebuyers, 55%, and 51% of Gen Z buyers see house hacking as a real path to home ownership. But the same survey noted that not everyone recognizes the challenges. finding the right property, screening tenants, handling maintenance, and navigating the hybrid landlord-tenant dynamic when you share walls. These are real frictions. They are manageable, but they are real. Here is what the data tells us about the people who do make this trade-off. Over a 5-year holding period on a modest duplex purchase, a typical house hacker builds equity through principal paydown, collects rent that covers a substantial portion of their housing costs, and benefits from any appreciation the property sees, all while their friends who kept renting pay every month with nothing to show at the end. The Urban Institute found that the median wealth gap between homeowners and renters has increased by 70% over the past 3 decades. That gap does not close by waiting. It closes by owning. And house hacking is one of the few strategies that makes owning genuinely affordable in the early years when most people have not yet built up a large down payment. Let's also address what house hacking looks like in today's market honestly, because some content out there still talks about it like it is 2021 with 2.5% mortgage rates. It is not. The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged around 6.2% at the end of 2025. And most experts expect rates to stay elevated through 2026. At that rate, the rental income from one unit in a duplex is unlikely to fully eliminate your mortgage payment in most markets. Experts now describe the strategy as shifting from a way to live for free to a way to make ownership workable. And that is still a win worth pursuing. As one mortgage expert put it directly, if rental income cuts a mortgage in half, the owner is well below the cost of renting while building equity instead of paying a landlord. That is not a failure of the strategy. That is the strategy working exactly as it should in a higher rate environment. The markets where house hacking works best in 2025 and 2026 are high rent areas with durable demand. College towns, medical hub cities, urban cores, and dense suburbs where roommate demand stays strong regardless of economic conditions. If you are in a market where rents have been rising faster than home prices, your tenant's monthly payment captures a larger and larger share of your cost as time goes on. Now here is the concrete action this video is building toward, and this is the step that most people never take because it feels too large to start. This week, before you do anything else, do 3 things. First, look up the FHA loan limits in your county or market. You can find them on the Housing and Urban Development Department website in under 5 minutes. In most mid-sized markets, the limit for a duplex is well above $600,000, which covers most reasonable purchase prices. Second, pull your credit score and check it against the FHA minimum of 580, which qualifies you for the 3.5% down program. Third, search Zillow or Realtor.com for 2 to 4 unit properties in your target area and start getting familiar with what those properties rent for versus what they sell for. You are not committing to anything yet. You are just learning the landscape, which is how every good financial decision starts. If you find a property where 75% of the projected rental income from the other unit or units covers more than half your estimated monthly mortgage payment, you have found a property worth examining seriously with a lender who understands owner-occupied multifamily financing. That conversation costs you nothing and tells you exactly what you are working with. The single most important mental shift here is reframing your housing cost from an expense into a problem that has a structural solution. Renting is simple. It requires no upfront capital, no tenant management, no maintenance decisions. House hacking is more complex, but complexity that cuts your monthly housing cost in half and builds you equity. Every single month is complexity that pays you back. Every year you wait is a year that 43 times wealth gap stays intact. Next-Gen Finance exists to give you the frameworks that actually change your financial trajectory, not motivational content, but the specific tools and strategies that move numbers in your favor. If that is the kind of content you want more of, subscribing gives you access to a library built entirely around that purpose. Leave me a comment with one specific question. Where do you live right now? Do you rent or own? And what is the single biggest thing standing between you and your first property purchase? I read every comment, and the most honest answers help shape what this channel covers next. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial or investment advice. Please do your own research and consult a licensed financial professional before making any financial decisions.